In France, despite minimal support from politicians, some politicians, party leaders, and members of parliament are calling to leave the EU. But they are finding more support after the farmers' protests. They argue that member states have no power to renegotiate EU treaties. And despite promises from the French government, nothing will change for the farmers. NTD's France correspondent David Vives has the story.
While the majority of French farmers are returning to work and clearing blockades on France's highways, some remain to deliver a message. For Alexandre Pat, farmers will have more opportunities to protest this year.
If the government does nothing today, they'll remember it at the European elections. Then there are the Olympic Games. I think farmers are still ready to mobilize during the Olympic Games.
In Paris, hundreds of protesters this weekend have attended a demonstration near the Eiffel Tower at the call of the political group Les Patriotes. They're calling for the French government to leave the European Union, or Frexit. Their slogan, Frexit, is similar to Brexit, named after the British leaving the EU. One of the reasons of protests in many EU countries are the cheap imports due to free trade agreements and overwhelming regulations. Both of these issues find their roots decisions made in Brussels. For policy analyst Charles-Henri Gallois, there is no way for any member state to deviate or renegotiate the treaties signed by the EU Commission.
But in any case, we are not going to change the current treaties, and you'd be lying to people to make them believe that, because the current treaties are already the price of 60 years of compromises, that nobody can or wants to go back on.
French President Emmanuel Macron said he wouldn't sign the latest free trade agreement, Mercosur, as it is now written in order to ease the farmers' protest. But in the end, Gallois says the EU will move on with that treaty anyway.
Macron is trying to gain time, even on the Mercosur agreement. So what's actually going to happen? They'll wait until after the European elections. Then he'll certainly get some cosmetic concessions, and he'll end up signing.
Party leader Florian Philippot tore down the EU flag at the protest.
For 40 years, they've been selling the idea at every European election that they are going to change Europe. But they'd never change Europe. It can't be changed. It can't be reformed. It's less and less reformable. We just have to get out and destroy it before it destroys us for good.
Leaving the EU isn't on the agenda of any parliament group, but the idea seems to find more supporters after the farmers' protests. A poll published last week shows 39% of French believe the EU treaties are responsible for the farmers' protests. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.